Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another IgnitionTube video. I'm Eli and today we're installing these Fortunato coilovers on my E46 M3 with 343,000 miles because one, it needs a suspension refresh, and two, because I'm sick of looking at monster truck ride heights. So let's get these unboxed, get them on the car, and I'm really excited to see how these feel. Fortunato is a brand that I've heard a lot about and I have actually never run, so I'm really excited to experience these. One of the reasons I went up with them for the E46 is that they do have incorporated front camber plates, and this is gonna need them because I got some aggressive wheels for it. So let's get these unboxed, like I said, and jump into the install. I really got to do something about the echo in this garage. I think we just need to put more stuff in here, but we got our coilover tools, we got all sorts of stickers and stuff in here. I want to give a big shout out to Raymond O. He's the one who actually built these for me. Wow, these are really pretty. I also upgraded to the Swift springs on this. I'll put the exact specs on the screen, but my homie Nick over there decided that, you know, I can't be rolling around on the factory Fortunato springs. Even though there's nothing wrong with them, we balled out and upgraded to the Swift springs. So I'm super excited about that. We can click this down or click it up to make it firmer or obviously softer. Let's see, Flow Digressive Technologies. Fortunato actually came out just now with a Generation 8, the day that I'm filming this video. So if you order Fortunatos for your car, you will actually have better coilovers than I have. The struts are pretty straightforward. There's just two bolts on top there that you undo, and then the new one slides right in. At the bottom here, there's this 18mm that holds the strut on, and then the spring and everything is mounted separately. You have to push down to pop that out. It works better if you pull it from the top. If you do it from the bottom like I did, you'll end up getting it wedged. You'll see more about that in a minute. What I learned from doing this on the other side is if you push the strut up, it will hold it in, and then it won't fall out when you undo the bolts, so you actually have time to undo the bolts. Then all we do is let the jack down, and this comes right down. Beauty. I had to zip out, and like an idiot, I left my camera at home for today. The rear spring is out. Had to do some mildly sketchy stuff to take it out. I actually got it jammed up, and I'm not gonna be putting them in again, so you can guess what I did there. But the good news is that that is out, so we can go ahead and get this perch installed in the rear. One thing to note about these is this nut as well as this collar are actually gonna go in below on the bottom here. And now I was confused by that because there's not much clearance to the axle when you do that. But if you can finagle it in there, once the suspension is lifted back up at ride height, there's plenty of clearance between the bottom of this and the axle. So we'll go ahead and get that installed, and we'll get the strut tossed up in there as well. You can see there is no cracks, which is a beautiful thing. All right, so I finagled the spring up in there. You just wanna make sure that it's actually sitting on that. And then obviously it's sitting on the perch, and this will straighten out as it comes upwards once you jack it up to install the strut. So let's get the strut tossed up in there. I actually thought I lost these, but I found them in my toolbox. These are strut tower reinforcement plates that I got from FCP Euro that just go up here. Fortunato is different than a lot of other brands. This strut will actually adjust your ride height. So you loosen this collar, which I actually didn't tighten down and it was rattling. But if you loosen this collar, so spin it back around that way, you can actually rotate the assembly of the strut, and that way it doesn't mess with the preload of the spring. So the spring can stay preloaded and the strut actually controls the ride height. Also, when I drop the car in just a second, you're gonna hear me mention spacers. I bought 15mm spacers off of Amazon with the corresponding bolts. Just pop those on to the stock wheels for now. Spacers are on. Looking much meatier than it was. Let's go ahead and get her dropped down. I may need two hands for this 1 second. Here she goes, dropping down. All right, well that's all the way down. Oh baby, are you kidding me? Okay, it's a little bit low. Might need to go up a little bit, but that looks so much better than that. Especially with the spacer. Oh baby. All right, I've already got it started on the front coilovers. One of those things that you rush into it, get it done quickly, and then forget to film. But this is what I can give you a tip on if you are struggling with right now. See on the top of that bolt, right here, there's a flat spot. You're gonna have to find that flat spot with a really thin wrench, or in my case, what it is, I just came in with the little tiny vice grips and I grabbed it like that, and then it's obviously on the other side of this guy, but it spins freely otherwise. So you grab it with the vice grips and then you hit the other side, which has a nut on it that comes right off. I actually don't know where the nut is, I'll have to find it, but that is what you're working with for sway bar end link. Otherwise, you're just gonna have it spin endlessly. Now, we get to undo this little pinch bolt down here, which holds this whole thing together. Now, I was able to get the other side out without using a strut spreader. I just kind of sprayed some WD down in there and wiggled it back and forth, and it came right out. But anyway, let's jump into it. No idea what I just did, but that worked. Much faster to go on than take off. Why am I not using impact, you're asking? Well, pretty straightforward. It's 11:30 at night. There we go. All right, yep, I got the ride height very wrong in the front. Pound, my coilover technician has showed up here. We read about preload, and we're realizing that we should have preloaded this spring better. I did preload it. I didn't just leave it flopping, but essentially you're supposed to have a 1/4 inch of preload, so you're supposed to measure the spring. So essentially you measure the spring without any load on it, and then you want to reduce the length of the spring 1/4 inch in this case. So Pound is just measuring and then screwing that collar up. And the beauty of the Fortunatos is that this down here, sorry, can't focus. This guy down here, when you loosen that, you can spin the whole body of the strut up and down, which adjusts ride height, and you can set the preload of the spring separately, so that unlike other coilovers, when you go lower in the ride height, the ride gets softer because the spring extends more, or when you go higher in the ride height, the spring is compressed and the preload is, or rather the damping is harder. You get damping, preload, and ride height adjustment all separate.
Yep, and that preload is set now. That's the right height there, or the right amount that the spring needs to be slightly compressed. Because originally it was like 7 inches, and now it's right at 6 and 3/4. Yeah.
Beauty. And then we just dial in the ride height on the bottom by spinning that, and the spring stays preloaded.
It's really nice because when you're working with a new part, after you kind of tighten, because there's like a little nut here that sandwiches it onto the thread so that it doesn't want to rotate anymore. After you do that, I found that you could literally spin it by hand.
Yeah,
just to set the height.
One New England winter is going to completely ruin that. So
that'll be the true test.
We've got to get a ride height dialed in before winter rolls around. We got some time. We're good.
All right, we're rolling.
Got me?
Yep.
All right, Pound and I are on our first drive with the coilovers on. We're on our way to get an alignment, which I think will be in the next video. But we have every damper. So there's 24 settings for the damper. We have every damper in the car set on 10, which I think is a little less than halfway stiff would be my logic, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, you're right in the middle of it. So that's where you're starting off. And
that's where I'm starting off.
Good so far.
It doesn't feel bad. I mean, we've hit a couple bumps and it hasn't felt off.
I haven't really ridden in this car, so you're the one that really can feel the difference here.
I'm excited now. We're not gonna get to go on the highway quite yet. We'll have to save that for...
I would rather you get the alignment. And
get the alignment and then go on the highway, but man, she feels like she did.
Yeah, I anticipate...
Except it's much lower.
I anticipate you're gonna feel the most of the difference when you do some hard driving and then feel rebounds, because that's really where these these shock absorbers kind of shine is because
Right.
like, they have like a two-way damper, so.
And we opted for the Swift springs specifically with spring rates designed more for daily driving than like track stuff. So
Yeah.
a little softer spring than what most people run, because I told them I wasn't going to be slammed, which I guess, I'm not slammed, it's low, but it's not slammed. So I'm okay with a little bit of suspension travel, and I'm not going to be tracking this car. But I mean, we're on not the smoothest roads, and so my biggest worry was setting the dampers. I guess I didn't even set them that stiff, but my biggest worry, and always the biggest worry when installing coilovers, is you don't want that bounce. When you hit a bump like that, you don't want to go boing, boing, like the cheap Honda suspension, no offense,
I'm not
the
doing
cheap
much,
Honda suspensions do. They do like a boing, boing after the bounce because the suspension doesn't settle. This settles really nicely. And
Yeah,
it
I'm not
feels really
doing
good.
much trying to hold the camera steady, actually.
Right.
I'm just kind of like relaxing a little bit. It feels good. I mean,
You could definitely feel the bumps. Like, I'm not going to say we're riding a Rolls Royce, but from stock to this, considering we're probably 3 inches lower, if not maybe 2 or 3, I don't know.
nah, I think we're more like 1.5 to 2 inches.
Okay,
lower.
but even with that, you would expect some sort of compromise in ride quality. And all I can hear so far is that the tires are louder, because the old tires were Falcon all seasons that were like the hardest tires you've ever felt. So
Yeah, I think you're going to have a lot more fun with
it's
this.
really darty on turning. It's taken out. I mean, the dead space is still there, but that initial bite is really nice now, and that has to do with the alignment spec more than the coilover, I guess. But this is my first car with a lot of front camber. Everything else I've had is either all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, so you don't want a ton of front camber. We'll have a whole separate video coming on dialing in the suspension, my full thoughts on the suspension, as well as making sure the fitment is just completely what we want. So for now, I will leave you guys with this. Make sure to stay tuned for a future video. We are definitely going to talk more about these coilovers. Huge thanks to Pound for being my emotional support and for all the adjustments that you did, Doug.
Gotcha.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Go out there, spread some positivity, and we will catch you guys in the next video.